So now I invite the second speaker, Madam, Professor Lysenko Victoria. Please come.
Namaste to everybody. Esteemed chairperson, co-chairperson, esteemed professors, respected audience, I am not going to talk about a holistic way of life or so. Yeah, okay, thank you. My subject, I may refer to as very, very theoretical and metaphysical. So my main concern is to talk about the most deep level of structural analysis, where you find some structures and categories which are common to all philosophical traditions, which unites them on a very, very deep level. For me, such categories are continuity and discontinuity, or in other terms, continualistic and atomistic approaches. In my opinion, the holistic attitude is a part of continualistic approaches, where continuity govern over discontinuity. But in every kind of approaches, we can find both the continuity and discontinuity. The holistic approach, for me, is not only a mere reference to a whole-parts relationship in which whole explains the parts. In this paper, holistic has a connotation of integrity, wholeness, in the sense of coherence, completeness, essence, self-sufficiency, autonomy, self-identity, or integrity. This essence or integrity can be given a priori. Sometimes it is regarded as having timeless existence or as something not created, apaurusheia. Or it may be identified with the whole, which is, could not be reduced to the sum of its parts. Or it may be identified with the parts, like in the monadology of Leibniz. It may be also identified with the function. When we, for example, identify the identity of a thing with its function. For example, we say that a pot is something which may contain some substance. So this function of container is the essence of the pot. It may be also identified with activity. It may be identified, as we know from Upanishad, with highest reality, with God, or even with emptiness, like Buddhist shunyata. I distinguished 4 kinds of models of integrity in Indian philosophy. In the first one, the integrity results from the dominance of the whole over its parts to the effect that only the whole is considered to be real, while the parts are referred to as the agency of Maya or avidya, as in Advaita Vedanta. In the second one, only parts are real, while the whole is illusion, like in Buddhist Abhidharma schools. In the third model, whole and parts both are real, but the whole is something more than a mere sum of its parts, like in Vaisheshika and Nyaya and Mimamsa. The fourth type is a functional whole, the integrity of which depends on the fulfillment by each part of its specific role. A classical example is the system of Varna-ashrama dharma, where dharma as a whole is sustained by executing of each Varna of its own dharma-ashrama dharma. In my terms, the first and the fourth models belong to the category of holistic approaches. The second and third models belong to the category of atomistic approaches. A veneration of the sacred word was typical of many ancient societies, but it is only in India that it became the basis of a completely unique tradition. The oral transmission of the Vedas from teacher to disciple, Guru Shishya Parampara, aiming at preserving an original cosmic vibration. Here, integrity model, sorry. It constituted this organic, original cosmic vibration of the sacred word, constituted the system-forming factor of the entire spiritual life in India. In many Vedic hymns, we find the idea that speech is cognized not by hearing, just capable of grasping some parts of it, but is perceived in its entirety, all at once. Oh, no. I just want to refer to one very famous Vedic hymn. You can read it. I will economize, I will save time by making you read the PowerPoint presentation. So understanding the whole precedes understanding its parts. This latent opposition of the whole, which as a rule is difficult to grasp of human beings, and empirical parts easily perceived by them, played, from my point of view, a huge role in the Vedic model of language and subsequently in the Indian linguistic philosophy, especially that of Bhartrihari. Most important for understanding this model is the key role of speech vocalization in the form of hymns, chants, and spells in the course of sacrifice. It was believed that its performance, according to the rules, the correct counting of syllables, the correct stress, tone, loudness, etc., the coordination of ritual actions with text recitation, the correctly chosen place and time, all these give prize, especially to Brahmins, the superintendents of the entire performance responsible for correcting mistakes by means of supplementary verses of the ritual, a power over the universe. On the contrary, an inaccurate recitation could not only hinder the success of some ritual, but also cause disasters, both for the Yajamana, the ritual patron, because it is on behalf of the Yajamana, a religious ritual is executed. And for the prize themselves. I refer to a well-known example of such an unfortunate performance mentioned by Patanjali in his introduction, is Paspashatu Mahabhashya. Here, this example. Please read it. In the 6th centuries BC, along with the Vedas, auxiliary disciplines took form around it. The purpose of these disciplines had been to preserve these oral texts in a strictly defined tone and rhythmic form, timed for execution in specific ritual ceremonies. Among these 6, accompanying oral sciences or Vedangas, like Chandas, prosody, grammar, Vyakarana, etymology, Nirukta. The first one was phonetics, Shiksha. The names with which tradition connects the authorships of some Vedangas are quite real historical characters like Pingala, Yaska, Panini. They were, in all likelihood, not so much the pioneers or creators of the relevant disciplines as the systematizers of already existing traditions. The earliest Vedanga is considered to be phonetics, shiksha. What is shiksha? According to Taittiriya Upanishad, the science of pronunciation includes the syllable, varna, the description of vowels and consonants, the affirmation and perception, accent, svara, quantity of vowels, matra, effort, bala, alignment or tone, sama, continuity, santana, rules of a phonic combination of sounds known as sandhi. There are two classes of phonetic texts, Shiksha and Pratishakya, relating to each school, practical guides on phonetic created within the framework of particular priestly schools to preserve the oral form of a particular text. Pratishakya, we well know Pratishakyas are presented here on this slide. The hymns of the Rig Veda have come down to us in two forms corresponding to two main memorization techniques. Samhita Patha, a continuous recitation of words connected by the rules of Sandhi, and Pada Patha, a recitation marked by a pause after every word presented in its original intended form without any phonic combination with its phonetic environment. The first corresponds to the deep tendency of Sanskrit to deny any independent character of the word in the sentence. The other memorization techniques were Krama Patha, step-by-step recitation, Jata Patha, Gana Patha, and so on. They were developed later. As an example, I give you the first hymn from the first book of Rig Veda. So you have here Samhita Patha and Pada Patha. I am not very sure of my way of reading these hymns in a traditional way, so I leave you to read yourself. If we compare these two forms, we can see that the final sounds and some words in them differ. The final and initial sounds of words, as well as sounds inside the words at the intersection, for example, of the root and suffix, are unstable and are affected by the change depending on which phonetic environment they are in. There are internal and external sandhya vowels, consonants and diphthongs. In the case of Samhita Patha, we have the incessant string of pronunciation, which is based on eka prana, on one breath. Pratishakya contained the rules for the derivation of Samhita Patha from the Pada Patha of this or that Vedic school, Shakha. According to Atharva Pratishakya, the Pada Pada is the study of the words isolates is designed to teach the beginnings and ends of words, their correct grammatical form, tonality, and also meaning. The division of a speech stream into separate words thus presupposed not only a purely morphological, but also a semantic analysis. However, the latter was still in its infancy. The oral transmission of Pada Patha could have been guided by the idea that memorization of a text only in its acoustic form also guarantees a correct understanding of its sense, while memorization based on a mere sense does not guarantee the correct reproduction of the form, since it makes possible the replacement of certain words by their synonyms or the expression of one and the same meaning in different ways by different words. The Brahmins' concern for the preservation of the Vedas in their primordial sound image was expressed not only in the invention of sophisticated mnemotechniques. After all, no mnemotechnique could prevent from deliberate distortion of words, but also in establishing a control over all the priests involved in ritual by the Brahmin priest. The figure of the Brahmin is a symbol of both discreteness and at the same time continuity of the ritual. In fulfilling its pater function, correction of mistakes, the Brahmin embodies some form of discreteness, but at the same time, he observes the execution of the ritual ceremony in all its integrity as a whole, and by this, he symbolizes its holistic integrity and continuity. Although it is obvious that Padapatha constitutes the result of the priest's editorial work over the continued text, Samhita, the relationship between Padapatha and Samhita with regard to their priority and value had been debated in Pratishakya texts. So in Rig Pratishakya, it is said, that which has its basis, prakriti, word, pada, is continuous recitation. But if you understand the compound pada prakriti, not in as bahuvrihi, as in the first case, but as tatpurusha, then the phrase will be the opposite. The word, the basis of which is samhita. Thus, we have two possibilities, either to recognize that the Veda originally consisted of individual words which were then transformed into a complex of continuous phrases, or to consider that the Veda was combined from blocks of continuous phrases which were subsequently divided into words. From the first point of view, Samhita is the result of the synthesis of Padas, words. According to the second, the division into separate words has as its preferred, has as its source the Samhita. Both these possibilities were known to Indian phoneticians, but most of them preferred the second one. According to the commentary to Taittiriya Pratishakya, certain slow-witted persons make the mistake of thinking that the Veda is constituted of words isolates, while in fact the words isolates are only treated as a basis for the purpose of facilitating instruction. Well, it would be, in my opinion, a simplification to reduce the relationship between Samhita and Pada to the relation between a genuine text and an instrument of its assimilation, or simple mnemonic device. In the Vedic universe, and this follows from many hymns, a constructed, composed whole, a cosmos, or rita, prevailed over an amorphous whole, or anrita, or chaos. This leads us to the idea that a Padapatha was a necessary accompaniment to a Samhita Patha, just as the division and repetition of the sacrificial substance constituted a necessary stage in the ritual recreation of the universe. Returning to our forms of recitation, we note that they represent two models of whole-path relationship. Padapatha is a composite, additive whole, parts of which have a relatively independent existence. Samhita Patha, by contrast, is rather a continuous entity corresponding to a holistic continuum model. So I come to the conclusion. It seems to me that the holistic approach as presented here in the analysis of Samhita Patha achieves its highest realization in Bhartrihari's philosophy of language. Bhartrihari shows that language is inseparable from being as such, that is, grammar is inseparable from metaphysics, and the linguistic performance is identified with creation itself. If in metaphysics the variety, diversity, discreteness of things can issue from the unity and integrity of the Brahman word, Shabda Brahman, and in the final analysis reduce to it, then in grammar, words, parts of words, and phonemes are derived from the sentence and can be reduced to it. In either case, division, analysis, that is, bringing unity into a discrete state, is only a means and instrument necessary to eventually restore the primordial, undivided integrity of the Brahman word. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Victoria. Thank you.